everyone, welcome to Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. And today, I'm coming in with predictions for another one of the 3 specialized categories. Today, I'm going to be talking about the documentary feature film category at the Academy Awards. Before we get into this, if you like what we do here, if you like Oscar predicting, if you like talking about movies, give us a subscription, toss a like, drop a comment down below, let us know what you think. It really helps us grow. And with that said, let's jump right into these documentary category predictions. And I think that the winner of the Oscar for Best Documentary will be Daughters. This is the Sundance Audience Award winner. It won the overall audience prize of the festival, a feat that was accomplished just a few years ago by Navalny. Daughters is a powerful documentary about the prison system in the United States, and specifically a program designed to bring incarcerated fathers together with their young daughters for a daddy-daughter dance. When I saw this film at the Hot Docs Film Festival, it had most of the audience in tears. I could hear sniffles all around me. There was a resounding feeling in the room that this was a really special film. Now, while I might not have connected with it on the level that I really wanted to, I do think the way that this film has spoken to audiences outside of myself really shows that this is something to watch out for. It also has Netflix's strength behind it. They are going to give it a hell of a campaign. There's a release date slated for it, I believe, in either August or September. They are planning to push this one. It is by far the festival favorite, and something worth noting about the documentary film category is normally the winner of the category will come from Sundance most years, and specifically comes out of the Sundance competition categories, not the premiere categories, not the special presentations categories, the competition. I really believe this is going to win the top prize this year. But if it's not Daughters, another film that looks very, very, very strong is The Remarkable Life of Iln. This is a Norwegian documentary film, which very interestingly takes place entirely inside of World of Warcraft. The film is built out of recreations inside of WoW. I haven't seen the film. I'm not sure if there's any talking heads footage outside of World of Warcraft, but the use of the video game, the use of the digital space to tell this story in particular sounds fascinating. The Remarkable Life of Iln tells the story of a family who, after losing their son, who never had many friends at school, who never had many friends in real life, his parents are distraught because they believed that their son lived a lonely and sad life until messages of support start coming in from the internet. And they learn that their son was incredibly popular and had a thriving social life on the virtual world of World of Warcraft. It just sounds like a beautiful film. It's gotten rave reviews. Another one that played at the Sundance Film Festival. It was another one of the audience prize winners. This film just sounds remarkable to me. It's also worth noting this is not the only documentary film this year shot inside of a video game, because there's also another film which unfortunately will not be on my list here, but it's another film that I saw called Grand Theft Hamlet, which takes place inside Grand Theft Auto entirely. So I don't know what it is, but I love that documentary filmmakers right now are completely embracing and making films within the digital space. That's so cool to me. Iln sounds like a revolutionary film that I think is going to shift a lot of people's perceptions of what a documentary can be. It also sounds like a tearjerker that is going to move people. Honestly, I think this could be a contender for a win against Daughters. Notably, another film being pushed by Netflix. Netflix is the goddamn powerhouse in this category this year. My third contender here is a Japanese documentary called Blackbox Diaries. This is another Sundance title. You're going to notice a pattern here. A lot of these are going to be Sundance titles because that is primarily where these films usually come from. Blackbox Diaries is essentially Japan's Me Too film that documents a historic landmark case trying people who are very high profile sexual abusers. So this film tells the story of a journalist who's uncovering this and uncovering her own sexual assault case. Blackbox Diaries sounds like it's in a really strong position for a variety of reasons. It's got that strong festival play. It's going to be very critically acclaimed in the United States and seen as very important in Japan. And the film holds this level of importance that I think speaks to people worldwide. So this one just looks like a really good bet for a nomination right now. The next film on my list is Sugarcane. Surprise, surprise, another Sundance movie. This is being distributed by National Geographic and Disney. It currently holds a mid-90s Metacritic score, which is absurdly high. Critics love this film, and for good reason. There are certain times when a movie comes along and it feels like it defines what that story is. It feels like the document that people are going to look back at when they learn about certain moments in history. And for Sugarcane, this is specifically about residential schools within Canada and the United States, but specifically within Canada. If you're not familiar with the residential school system, essentially the Canadian government, in partnership with the Catholic Church, decided to round up every Indigenous child in the country and send them off to schools, and in doing so committed an act of cultural genocide, attempting to erase Indigenous culture within Canada. This has been spoken about quite a bit over the past few years, but really came to the forefront of the conversation in Canada just a few years ago when a mass grave containing the skeletons of hundreds of Indigenous children was uncovered at a former residential school in Kamloops. So Sugarcane specifically tells that story about the community of Indigenous people around this residential school in Kamloops, reckoning with the grief of years and years and years of suffering with the knowledge of what happened at these schools. It's a powerful film with a powerful message, and being distributed by National Geographic, by Disney Plus, I think is going to get eyes on this in just the right way. Critics love it, and I think America's ready for this conversation to open up. And to round out my top 5 in the category, I have Brett Story and Stephen T. Mang's film Union, which is another Sundance documentary about the formation of the Amazon labor union in Staten Island. This tells the story of Chris Smalls, a fired Amazon worker, dedicating his life to taking on the bullies at Amazon. This film shows all the complexities of what goes into collective organizing. There's always going to be infighting within the ranks, and the film doesn't shy away from the fact that a lot of this infighting is caused by Chris Smalls himself, that even this driven person who is really making a difference, he's still someone who is a little disagreeable. He's a little bit hard to work with, even for people that are on his side. So the film really portrays this topic with a lot of nuance, and it brings a level of complexity that I think a lot of other films would shy away from. There's one big strike against Union, no pun intended. The big thing against this film when it comes to the Oscar race is this does not have a distributor. And when I say it doesn't have a distributor, I don't mean it's waiting for a distributor. I mean that no one wanted to take the film on, because I think any distributor that was going to take this would have to suffer the wrath of Amazon. None of the other streamers are going to buy it because they're all big corporations. None of the small ones are going to buy it because then that stifles their ability to work with Amazon and with Prime Video and all of that. So I think that no one took this for that reason. They were afraid of retaliation, which seems to be a theme in 2024. Films not getting distribution because they're afraid of retaliation. So instead, Union opted to self-distribute. They are coming out in theaters in October, completely self-distributed. We haven't really seen this happen before with a film that should be as high profile as this one. A Sundance Award-winning documentary. Honestly, I think it could work out for the film. I think it could get enough eyes on it, and the documentary category is not one that really needs a campaign in the traditional sense. You don't need a distributor. Sure, having Netflix on your side can help. Having Disney on your side can help. Having Amazon on your side can help. But the fact of the matter is, every year films get into the category that are out of nowhere. To Kill a Tiger, for example, last year didn't have distribution in the United States when it was nominated for an Academy Award. In fact, I think it barely met the qualifications to get nominated. Union can do it. If To Kill a Tiger can do it, this movie can, because the film stands on its own and it speaks for itself. Outside of my top 5, let's go through some of these. At number 6, I have the Cannes Best Documentary winner, Ernest Cole, Lost and Found. This is another one that I don't know a ton about yet. I haven't seen the film, I missed it at Cannes, but it did win the top prize for documentaries there, which is a very, very good sign. We've seen some of those winners get into the documentary category in the past, for example, for Salma, or last year with Four Daughters. Ernest Cole was a Black photographer who was very important in the world of photojournalism for his work in South Africa during the time of apartheid. It's all about digging up someone whose work has gone a bit underappreciated in the past few decades, who has gone from being someone who was really, really important in the world of photojournalism to kind of being a forgotten piece of history. So this film seeks to appreciate his photography and to appreciate his contribution to history. Raoul Peck, the director of this, has had quite a bit of success in the Academy Awards Best Documentary category in the past, which doesn't always bode well, I will say, for your chances in the future. If you've been nominated in the past, it can be hard to get another nomination. If you've won in the past, it can be extra hard to get another nomination. This is not a category that is very easy to break into multiple times, but Raoul Peck can definitely do it. He is a highly esteemed auteur of documentaries. After that, we have the Sundance Grand Jury Prize winner, Porcelain War. I had one Cannes film, and now I'm back to Sundance. Porcelain War is this year's big Ukraine war documentary, and it specifically tells the story of the Ukrainian war through the lens of artists. The artists who left their work to go and fight. The ones who uphold Ukrainian culture, following a squadron of Ukrainian soldiers who all are artists in their own right, specifically the two leaders of the troop who make beautiful porcelain sculptures. There's some amazing moments in this film with the porcelain where they paint the porcelain and then somehow they animate the paintings and it comes to life in a beautiful way, telling us a little bit more about Ukrainian culture. And really the theme of the film, more than just war, is it's about what wars are fought for. They are fighting to have the ability to go home at the end of the day and create something beautiful. War is the absence of beauty, and yet these people find beauty every day. They go home, they create art. Now, this is no 20 Days in Mariupol. It's not meant to make you shocked. It's not meant to really break your soul in the same way that 20 Days in Mariupol was. But this is a powerful film in its own right. Clearly resonated with a lot of people at Sundance, as it was one of the big award winners there. Why I have it outside of my top 5 at the moment is just because for 2 years now, we've had Russia-Ukraine themed documentaries win. Last year, 20 Days in Mariupol, specifically about the war, and the year before, Navalny, which was about Putin and Navalny and the political corruption within Russia. I don't know if for a third year in a row, not only like putting aside a win, I'm not sure if we're going to get a nominated film from Ukraine. That said, if there is one, Porcelain War feels like the best bet that we have, and that's why it's right on the outside of my top 5. I just don't think it's quite as strong as Navalny or as 20 Days in Mariupol were in past years, and I think that could hurt it just a little bit. At number 8, I have what I believe will be the critics' leader for documentary awards this year, and this is Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. We've seen a pattern in the past few years. There is a documentary that dominates with critic awards. It takes every critic prize, and then it doesn't get nominated at the Oscars, and everyone goes, what? How did still a Michael J. Fox movie not get nominated? Really, the answer to that is a lot of the time these profile documentaries that look at a celebrity and go, oh, look at their career, look at all the things that you should be nostalgic for, look at how much they made a difference with their career. Those films can come across as a little bit of vanity projects. They're not a documentary that you're watching to really learn something about the world. They're documentaries that you watch to connect a little bit more with a celebrity that you really like. That's what Still a Michael J. Fox movie was last year. I was mystified why this was the the film that won every single critics prize. I did not understand it whatsoever. But year after year, we see documentaries that fit into this formula. Films that are sappy career rewinds. Val was another one. Val Kilmer's documentary a few years ago just did so well with critic groups and then wasn't at the Oscars. Surprise, surprise, because the Oscars don't like documentaries like this. So why is it at number 8? It's at number 8 because it's almost certainly going to be shortlisted for the Academy Award. It's almost certainly going to clean up with critic prizes. It's likely going to win the Critics' Choice Award for Best Documentary. It's going to do incredibly well with these documentary prizes from groups that don't give a shit about documentaries, because that's the type of film this is. But at the Oscars, this category is decided by people who gatekeep. They gatekeep films like this out because they are really protecting the documentary form. While I'm not a fan of gatekeeping, I do support it in this way. I, for one, want to see more documentaries like Daughters, like The Remarkable Life of Iln, winning prizes at the Oscars, and less films that just feel like a career rewind that makes you want to say, oh, I should really go back and watch Superman again. This could be a very good film. It probably is going to make me cry. I'm probably going to give it a nice 7 out of 10, but this is not what the category is about, and this is not the type of film that wins in this category or gets nominated. Maybe this is going to look really stupid in a few months looking back, but I just have seen a pattern and I'm sticking with it. At number 9, we have A New Kind of Wilderness. This is another Norwegian film, just like The Remarkable Life of Iln, and this is another Sundance Prize winner. Wow, surprise! Essentially, if you've seen the movie Captain Fantastic with Viggo Mortensen, A New Kind of Wilderness is that, but in real life. Plot beat for plot beat, everything is the same. It's about a family who has brought up their children in the relative wilderness. They've been brought up kind of detached from society. They've been taught survival skills from when they're young. And when the mother of the family passes away, the family is forced with a financial decision that they need to sell their property in the wilderness and they need to move into civilization. Exactly like Captain Fantastic. This is another one where I have to put my own biases aside and say that people loved this film out of Sundance. It was one of the Grand Jury Prize winners. But when looking at it up against some of the films above it, when looking at it up against films that have very serious subject matter, this just feels a little insubstantial in comparison to those. The documentary category is often a category where having a really strong social issue to talk about is something that propels you. A New Kind of Wilderness doesn't really have that. As much as people may like the film a lot, it doesn't have that sort of oomph of importance. At number 10, there is the film No Other Land. No Other Land is a Berlin debut. Surprised I didn't say Sundance? So am I. This film is made by a collective of 4 filmmakers from both Israel and Palestine, and it's a collective built to expose what is going on in the West Bank. This specifically focuses in on one town, and it shows what happens over the course of multiple months as Israeli settlers and the IDF move in and take away their homes, leaving an entire community homeless. It is not an easy watch, especially with what's going on in Gaza currently. There's also part of me that feels like even if this does not find distribution, that if it manages to get a qualifying release, there will be enough documentary filmmakers, enough members of the documentary branch of the Academy Awards that are so passionate about this issue that they will be able to get enough votes together to get this into the shortlist. Documentary filmmakers are a very outspoken group. That is the career of a documentary filmmaker, to say things that the majority are not ready to hear, to capture things that are meant to change the majority's mind, and to make films that are an act of resistance. And No Other Land is an act of resistance. We could definitely see this one in the category at the end of the year. At number 11, there's Skywalker's A Love Story. This is another Netflix movie, and surprise, surprise, another Sundance movie. This was a very hot acquisition at Sundance. I think Netflix spent a ridiculous amount of money on this one because it kind of fits into the fire of love, free solo vibe of film. Extreme danger, going to extreme lengths for the love of something. But for me, it's yet to be seen whether Skywalker's A Love Story is free solo or whether it's The Deepest Breath from last year. I don't know how this is going to to play with the Academy Awards, because in the past we've seen films that feel like they fit that niche not really happen, not really hit. And with Netflix having two stronger films, one of which being Daughters, which is much more politically relevant, and the other being Ibelin, which is much more moving and tear-jerking and seems to have a better audience reception, I don't know if I see the space for Skywalker's A Love Story. This is another one that, like Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, could do very, very well with critics groups, but maybe come up short at the end of the day. Moving a little bit lower down the list, these are now the films that I'm a little bit on the fence about. These are ones that I'm not certain I would say are huge contenders, but they're definitely things that I'm keeping an eye on that could climb up my list a little bit as the year goes on. Number 12, I have Nocturns, which is a film from India, and it sounds like a very artful, almost experimental documentary about moths. There's some similarities to All That Breathes here, specifically being a film from India that is about nature, about preservation, and is a little bit experimental in its filmmaking technique. So maybe that's clouding my judgment a little bit here, but something about Nocturnes feels different. It feels unique. It feels a little special. At number 13, I have Agent of Happiness, which is a film from Bhutan. This tells the story of two men whose job is to go around Bhutan surveying people on their happiness. What are people looking for in their lives? Do they feel content? It's quite light and enjoyable and entertaining. Ultimately, I will say personally, I found it got a little bit repetitive throughout, because it really is 2 hours of asking people, are you happy? Why are you happy? Why are you not happy? What could make you happier? But there's still a simplicity to this that is really beautiful. It's just a simple film with simple delights. At number 14, The Truth vs. Alex Jones. This is an HBO documentary. It premiered at the South by Southwest Film Festival. It has great reviews. This film tells the story of the court case between the parents of the Sandy Hook children and Alex Jones, who spent about 9 years telling lies and basically making their lives a living hell, constantly being harassed by lunatics who were told by Alex Jones that these people were lying. I was shocked to learn through this documentary that 25% of American citizens believe that the Sandy Hook massacre was faked. And this film not only talks about how Alex Jones lied, but it lays out all of the concrete facts and really gives you the most in-depth documentary that you could get about Sandy Hook to prove that it happened, to prove that these parents are real people with real loss. It's also a really compelling, comprehensive look at how media can manipulate people, at how people trust what comes through their TV screens, and what the responsibility is of media to tell the truth. Where does free speech start and where does it end? At what point is it free speech and at what point is it yelling fire in a crowded theater? Where is the line? It's being received very, very well, but that said, something about it being an early year HBO movie makes me feel like this won't last all the way to the end of the year. This will be buried in other films that are equally as strong and maybe coming out at a better time with a little bit more attention put on them. But that said, this does have such a politically relevant story, especially in this year, which we're going to be inundated with fake news and lies and manipulation through the media. This film could play really well at the end of the year if it gets a revival. I just don't know if it will get that attention. At number 15, I have The Invasion, which played at the Cannes Film Festival this year, and it's another Ukrainian film about the ongoing war. However, my understanding of this one is it's less about the war than it is about the lives of ordinary people still living in Ukraine, still living within the invasion. And apparently the film takes a larger tapestry as well and looks at the history of invasions through the world, as well as looking at the strength of the Ukrainian people in protecting their land and how they've done so throughout history. Porcelain War got better reviews, which is why this one is a little bit lower down than that. However, I do think this one will be Ukraine's submission to the international feature category, as I believe that Porcelain War was an American production despite being a Ukrainian film. Regardless, this one could definitely make a push, especially if it gets good distribution in the fall, but at the moment, I'm not feeling like this one is one of the strongest contenders that we have. There's also Power, which is the new film by Yancey Ford, the director of Strong Island, which was nominated back in 2017. This is a Netflix movie, premiered at Sundance, not in competition, but premiered at Sundance, and it's about the history of American policing. I just watched this one this weekend. I thought it was very powerful. It really lays out a comprehensive history of what the policing in America was built for originally, how it came from slave patrol, and not just saying that it came from slave patrol, but giving actual evidence. Now, that said, a lot of the stuff in this movie has been covered by other films. This one might be more laser focused on this specific issue, but I think a lot of this has been talked about in films that have been nominated in recent years, and that's why I'm not feeling as confident in this one. It doesn't feel as fresh or as novel. It's another Netflix movie, and there's so many Netflix movies above this one at this point. I don't know if I can justify Power. To rattle through the last few here, there's a Kenyan film, The Battle for Laikipia. There is Ron Howard's Disney Plus documentary, Jim Henson Idea Man. Now, this is one that if they don't end up going head over heels for the Christopher Reeve Superman movie, then maybe the Jim Henson movie is the critic frontrunner. Regardless, neither of these are going to be nominated for the Oscar, but they will pick up critic prizes. And like that one as well, there's Piece by Piece, which is the Pharrell Williams animated movie. I'm not sure if this one's going to be considered a documentary, though. I mean, Flea was, but I don't know about Piece by Piece. They're calling it a documentary, but is it? What's the line? I'm not sure. So if this one is eligible for documentaries, then it probably will pick up some critic prizes, but will not be nominated at the end of the day. There's also Seeking Mavis Beacon, Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat, and that really rounds out what I think the main contenders for this award are. Now, I'm going to put on screen my long shots here because I've got from 22 to 44 quite a lot of films that I see as possible long shots that could surge in the category. Also, keep in mind the TIFF lineup has not been announced yet, and there will be multiple documentaries premiering there that will enter into the race. So in future videos, I will have those films as well, but right now, I don't know about those. These are films that I don't think will be nominated, and I just want to touch on one film on this list that you're probably going to go, why is that number 26? That should be much higher, and that's my number 26, which is Girls' State. Girls' State, I have not seen yet, which is wild because Boys' State was one of my top 5 films of 2020. I loved that movie, and I'm really excited to watch Girls' State. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But the reason it's so low is, for one thing, Boys' State couldn't get a nomination, even though it had everything it needed. It had everything it needed to get a nomination, and it couldn't make it happen in a year like 2020. Girls' State isn't coming close to that level of acclaim. It's not coming close to that level of relevance that Boys' State had. And so I think everything that stopped Boys' State from getting a nomination, particularly, I think the reason Boys' State was so good is that it was part documentary and part reality TV show. Like, they took the concepts of reality TV, like Survivor, and they applied it to a documentary film. You were wondering who's going to win the whole time. It wasn't just exposing this event. And that's why I think it got gatekept out of the category, is that it felt a little bit too much like competition television. And Girls' State is going to have the same problem. People are not going to take it seriously within the documentary branch, and they're especially not going to take it seriously because it's a sequel, and they're especially not going to take it seriously because it's not being received as well. And so that's why, despite a lot of people saying Girls' State is top 10, top 5, I have it all the way down here at number 26. I think this is a very long shot film for a nomination. Now, there are plenty of other films here that I will not be talking about today, just because I don't have time to do that. I don't want to keep you here for a full hour. I want this to be as short as I can make it, despite the fact that I ramble on and on and on. So if you see any documentary here that I did not talk about, or any documentary that I didn't even list that you want to know something about, comment down below. Let's have a conversation about it. I want to talk with you. I want to hear what you think. That brings me to the end of this documentary feature video. Stay tuned, because very soon I'm going to be dropping another one of these for the animated feature category. But until next time, my name is Matt, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.